What's up? Matt Platt back with another expert roundup. Today we've got an author from the Hoosier State, just to the left or right, whichever way you're looking at Kentucky of me. What's going on, Jay?
Now, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. I could have worn the same suit. I should have matched up the graphic. I didn't think about it. I can't wear a tie though. I've not worn any ties since the pandemic. That's where I draw the line.
Yep. I hung my ties up about 7 years ago when I realized I'm a sweatshirt and t-shirt and golf shirt guy. And the funny story about it was my brother one day comes over because he knew I didn't wear my suits anymore, but he needed some ties for something. And he's like in my closet, like it's like Sears. He's like going through, looking, and then just leaves with stuff. And I'm like, okay, see ya.
Take them all. Yep.
So tell the audience about you, about yourself, about some of the books you've written and what you do for a living.
You bet. I am the founder of a company called Convince and Convert, which is a strategy consulting firm that works with lots of major brands on digital strategy, content strategy, social media strategy, customer experience strategy, etc. So we work with Oracle, with Hilton, a number of major universities. Cisco is a big client of ours. Kaiser Permanente. We've worked with PF Chang's on the restaurant side, Best Buy, 3M, lots of big organizations. So I have a strategy firm that we're virtually located. I've got strategists all over the U.S., some outside the U.S. And then I spend a lot of my time writing books. I've written 6 books now. And I used to travel 200 days a year giving speeches. And now I still do a lot of presentations, but I don't leave my house because of the pandemic, which has actually been okay. I have a podcast called Social Pros. Yeah. We are nearing our 500th episode of the podcast. It's all about how medium and large companies handle social media day to day. Socialpros.com is the main site for that. I've been in digital marketing now since 1993. So as long really as you could have been in the business. I actually started in the restaurant business. My first, my dad owned a restaurant when I was a kid. My first job was at McDonald's. And several of my best friends here in Bloomington actually own restaurants as well. So I get a fair bit of it by osmosis for sure.
Yeah, I'd say 93. I started in 99, and like people used to look at me weird back then when I talked about this thing called the internet. And then I remember in 08 when we went to digital strategy for a lot of small businesses, and they thought I was on drugs with Facebook and YouTube. And
Exactly.
So I guess I must have been on to something. So couple questions from the book. Now, the book that I've got, and I decided not to go to my office today, and I'm thinking your book is on my desk there for this interview. So it's not with me today, but there's the picture of it.
Quite right.
So usually I have it here to walk through, but I went through, this is from your books, from some of your content, 3 main questions. And it's kind of ironic. 2 days ago, I saw a post on, it was Fox News. It was a mobster from Italy who, I don't know if you saw this or not, he was caught living in the Dominican Republic, mobster on the run, because he had created a YouTube channel and they found
I did see that. Yeah.
And so
by his tattoos. Yeah. They got him by his tattoos.
And so I'm sitting here thinking, I've been telling restaurants specifically to get tripods and have cameras in your kitchen and tell your story and become relevant to people on their little kind of phone. Yep. And here's this mobster who's supposed to be hiding from the government, who's doing what we advise. Talk about becoming massively relevant in the marketing world.
Well, the first thing I guess you got to do is wear a long sleeve shirt. Is my advice, right? Not get popped by your tattoos. I mean, here's the thing, right? So everybody tells themselves the same lie. Like, I'm guilty of it. Matt, you're guilty of it. Everybody tuning in is guilty of it. We all tell ourselves the same lie, right? We say, hey, here's the problem. My audience, my customers, they're just too busy, man. They're too busy. They're too busy to read my blog. They're too busy to watch the videos. They're too busy to follow us in social media. They're too busy to come to the webinar. And that's just crap. It's not true. None of that is true. The average Netflix subscriber watches 21 hours of Netflix a week. People have the time. People have the time, right?
Wow.
That new movie that they did on HBO Max, right? The new director's cut, 4-hour long movie, right? So people have the time. If somebody says to you, man, Matt, I just don't have time to engage with your content, what they really mean, okay, but they don't say this because they don't want to hurt your feelings. What they really mean is what you have given them is not relevant enough.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't have the time. It's that they don't believe it is worth the time. Yeah. And those are different things, right? So relevancy right now is the killer app because people do have a lot of choices about how to spend their time. So if you want to be massively relevant in really any business, I call it the 3 drawbridges. Okay. So if you're trying to get somebody's attention, they have kind of 3 moats, right? And you have to get them to lower the drawbridge so that you can kind of walk across that moat with your information. Okay. So the 3 drawbridges of relevancy are these. It has to be first, the right message, right? So it has to be a topic that people actually care about. Okay. Second drawbridge is it has to be the right messenger. Okay. And what I mean by that is most of the time people pay more attention when you come at it personally as opposed to from the business.
Okay.
Which is why influencer marketing is so important now. User-generated content is so important, right? It's think about making a documentary, not a movie, if you will, right? People want to get information from real people, not from an organization. Second drawbridge. Third drawbridge is the right modality, okay? Message, messenger, modality. Modality, I mean, some people want to read. Other people want to watch. Other people want to listen. So whatever you're going to put out there in the universe, you need to make sure that you don't just do it in one format because some people aren't into that format. Like, so my son lives down the street now. He's going to school here at IU. He's got an apartment, but until a year or so ago, he lived here at home. And he's a sports fan as I am. And it's very common, Matt. We would get up in the morning, have breakfast, and we're sitting at kind of like the breakfast bar, right? And I would look over, and I'd be on my phone looking at ESPN, and he'd be on his phone looking at ESPN. And I'd look over, and he'd be watching videos, and I'd be reading the stories. Same article, because if you're familiar with ESPN.com, they've got a video on top of every article, and then the text. I'm an old man. I'm not going to watch a video every single time. He's a kid. He doesn't want to read ever. So you got to make sure you offer it in multiple formats. So that's how you do it. You have to understand what people want, make it personal, and give it to them in the content they prefer.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that about and how they want content. Is that I've got a podcast as well that am I getting feedback on my end or your end? Hold on, I got a little echo.
I'm not hearing it on my side.
Okay. I've got a podcast too, and we travel the country with it. We've traveled, like filmed 80 episodes the past 16 months. We've traveled all through the past year and a half. And somebody's like, well, Matt, why don't you just record the podcast on audio? Because it's on iTunes and Spotify. I said, well, because there's a lot of people that want to watch a video on YouTube. And for me, being in front of somebody is a lot better than being on Zoom or on this StreamYard, especially when you're trying to get deep. And plus, for me, I like to tour the restaurants, like to see the restaurants. Yeah. That gives context to the conversation.
Yep.
And the third component, which we have on our to-do list with a new employee we just hired, is to write out the podcast episodes. We've done 70-something episodes.
Yep.
And they're not written anywhere. And I realize that's a missed gap, is that there's people that they don't want to watch me talk. They don't want to listen to Spotify.
Yep.
They want to read it.
Yeah, they want to skim. Yeah, we use rev.com to transcribe it, and then we just have somebody clean it up, and good to go.
Yep, we use Rev a lot as well. So the second topic here. So talking about, you're creating how to become relevant with those 3 bridges for the customers. But one thing that has happened and changed a lot, I remember back, if you had a restaurant 25 years ago, and the customer complained, they said it to their wife in the car on the way home or their neighbor in the yard. Now they can say it anywhere. That's just the tip of the iceberg with regards to customers being in charge. Talk about that mindset and what businesses can do to to participate in that versus fight it?
Yeah, there's a couple things there, Matt. First, we've got to realize that customer service is a spectator sport now.
Yeah.
Increasingly, your interactions with customers are going to take place in social media or ratings and review sites. That's not to say somebody's not going to ask to speak to a manager or, what have you, but largely when people have a real issue, it's going to bubble up in some sort of public digital forum.
Yeah.
And that means that the value of that interaction is far greater than the value of that one customer, because dozens or hundreds or thousands of people may actually see the interaction, the review, the comment, the social media post, etc. So a couple of things. One, in my book, Hug Your Haters, we did a lot of research on this and found that it is always better to respond. A lot of restaurants choose to not respond, or they'll only respond to certain types of reviews or certain types of customers. That's a mistake. That's mathematically a mistake. You should respond ideally to every customer in every channel every time. Yeah. Now, does that take some time and effort? Of course it does. But it will very much be worth the time and effort. And now there's a lot of software packages out there that make it a lot easier to respond in social, to respond in reviews. And some of them are very inexpensive and affordable for even the smallest restaurants. So that's the first thing, is to understand that it's not about making this one person happy. It's about how do you come off to all these other people who might be thinking, hey, do I want to go in there to eat? Second thing, the pandemic has changed everything in this way. Nobody buys anything now without checking with somebody else first.
Yeah.
You either have to have way too much money or way too much trust to not be checking reviews right now.
Yeah.
Because everything has changed, right? As new restaurants open or reopen, even in my own town, I'm not just popping in to see how things are going. You kidding me? I'm checking the reviews first, and typically checking the reviews and then asking a friend who I know has already been there. So the reputation of your business, especially as we start to come out of the pandemic, is a huge driver of success or lack thereof. And in fact, research that came out from Podium in December found that 70%, 7 out of 10 customers say that reviews are more important to them now than they have ever been.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And of course they are, right? Like, everybody's got to double check now. And the data on that is pretty amazing, right? More than 60% will drive further to go to a business with better reviews. More than 50% will pay more to go to a business with better reviews. So you can do a lot of things well in your own marketing. Yeah. And I hope you do. But if your customers aren't on your side, it's probably not going to matter how good you are at marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, talking about the replying to reviews, I had a friend of mine who told me this example, and this was probably 10, 12 years ago. We were both speaking at an event for a company called Constant Contact. Mm-hmm. And I was speaking on email and social, and he was speaking on the review side of things. And one of his examples he used, and seems fitting that you've got this gorgeous suit on in the picture below, and that you and I are walking down the hallway, and I say, hey, Jay, man, I love that suit. And you just keep walking by.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be like, what the hell, dude? Like, what happened? And he said, that's what a lot of businesses, their biggest mistake. It's that they only look at the negative.
Yeah.
And then not counting how bad they typically reply to them, but they don't reply to the good ones at all. And that's a key mistake, is that when somebody says, I had a great experience and Cindy was an awesome server and the steak was amazing, get on there and have a conversation. That's your chance to interact, and it's your chance for other people to see it.
Yeah. I'll give it a good example of that. So there's a small chain in California called Fresh Brothers Pizza.
Okay.
They're getting larger now, but last time I checked, they had maybe 30 units, something like that. And their owner and founder, Debbie Goldberg, used to answer all the reviews herself. She doesn't anymore because they've gotten bigger. She's got somebody to do it, but she used to do it all herself. And there's actually a story about this, I think, in the book. And when she gets 5-star reviews, Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google, she responds in public, says, "Hey, thanks very much. That's great." But then she sends a direct message to those people and says, "Hey, it's Debbie. I'm the owner of Fresh Brothers. Thanks so much for taking the time to leave a review. That was awesome of you. I responded in public. But by the way, if I sent you a $10 gift card, would you come back and promise to bring somebody with you who's never been in before?" And I'm like, that is a super smart move.
Yeah.
Right? Super smart, because now this person feels like that they're being treated special. They will bring somebody else in. Yeah. Now it just creates a multiplier effect. It's just a really smart way to go. And I asked her, I said, "Well, geez, how much money you spending on gift cards?" She's like, "A little bit, but who cares? If you could tell me that for $10, I guarantee to get a customer, and it's somebody who's going to come with somebody who I know loves the business, I'll do that all day long. Like, how many gift cards can I give you? 1 million? Here's 1 million gift cards," because they're making money every time.
Yep. Yeah. Gift card strategies are huge. And it's overlooked a lot of times with tactics like that. I can't do it. The food cost. It's like, oh, you can, because it's going to cost you a lot more money to find a random customer than it is to find Matt Plapp's friend who's never been to your restaurant, who he brings with him. Absolutely. And it costs you $2 in food costs to give a $10 gift card out or whatever it would be.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's not actually, your cost isn't actually $10, and their cover is not going to be $10, right? They're going to spend more than that. So, you're actually making it up on the back end.
Yep. Now, talking about that, you talked about a smaller regional brand, trying to do things differently, trying to stand out. This is something that I think 20 years ago wasn't. When I worked in radio back in the late 90s, so 23 years ago, you could have a radio commercial that sounded like the big boy. Yeah. You couldn't produce a TV commercial for the most part. If you were watching local cable or local TV, you could tell that dude's brother did the video.
Yeah, exactly.
A local company or a place out of New York.
That's not a great camera. Yeah.
Yeah. The internet's changed that.
For sure.
And I know you deal with a lot of big brands. I deal with smaller brands. But man, they can look the same. So what are some of your pieces of advice for that local independent, for that Fresh Brothers, to say, hey, here's how you look like Pizza Hut?
Yeah. I mean, part of it is just using all the tools that are available now to just take video and make it look, a little better. I mean, there's stuff out there that's free or nearly free, that can really help you kind of edit and polish up, what you're doing, even with like short little video clips. Other thing is, ironically, the big guys are trying to look smaller, right? So they're trying to do more influencer-based stuff, customer created content, things along those lines, especially in social media. So the big guys are actually trying to not look polished, because if it's too polished, it's not believable. So ironically, if the smaller guys just make it slightly more polished, right? So it's not a train wreck. It ultimately blends in the middle, which is a huge opportunity. The other thing where local brands have an innate, natural, huge, colossal advantage is that people who actually own and run the restaurants can actually create the content themselves, right? If you're working with a big national brand, I just did a huge thing recently for all the Papa Murphy's franchises in the US, right? They've got a lot of franchises. I can't get the CEO of Papa Murphy's to do a series of Instagram posts about why take and bake is a great way to have pizza. Yeah. They should do that, but that person's a CEO, is a corporate CEO. It just would feel weird having that person create the content. But in a local organization, right, you can absolutely have, just like Debbie with the gift cards, right? You can have the owner manager be the star of the content. It kind of goes back to like Dave at Wendy's, right? Dave Thomas at Wendy's back in the day, right? That was a really effective campaign because it's a real, even though it's a big brand, because it's a real person, right? So I mentioned earlier this idea of making documentaries, not movies. Yeah, that's the best approach for local brands. Is like, just make it authentic, right? Just shoot it on an iPhone. People want to see reality right now, and you have the ability to do that in a way that big brands don't, because there's too much risk for them to be truly real. There's too much corporate red tape. It's just hard. Not impossible, but hard. And then if you do it right as well, You can also be a lot faster and a lot more nimble on the local side. Like, so a lot of our corporate clients, like, let's talk about like an Instagram post, for example. Okay. So one of our clients right now is Sam's Club, and we do a lot of work with Sam's Club on the strategy side. It typically, unless, something weird happens, Sam's Club is working, 30 to 45 days out on their social media. So right now they're working on stuff for like mid-May. Yeah. And from a planning standpoint, like a real strategy standpoint, they're working on Christmas right now. Literally, right? 6 months in advance. Yeah. Well, as a local business, like, you can be like, hey, the IU women's basketball team was in the Elite Eight on Monday night. You can be making content about that, putting out a special offer, doing something cool like that. You don't have to go through all the approvals and talk to lawyers and all those kind of things. So just get into the habit of doing things that make sense in the moment. And it's just a real natural advantage that I think most people don't take advantage of.
Yeah, I agree completely. And it's also, you talked about they can respond and do this stuff with the local teams that the big boys they're months out. It's also some of the trends, the things that are trending on Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok. All of a sudden they can come out with a funny TikTok that right now. And that's one thing. I had a conversation with a guy that's a client of ours and a friend who has a brand. He's the CEO of the brand and founder of it. And I said, man, how cool it would be if you hired a video person. Doesn't have to be the fanciest video person, and they just chronicled the day in the life of the CEO of a pizza chain. Yeah, because you've got a local feel. You're not big enough yet that people won't relate to you. So it would be cool content, the behind the scenes of what it's like to run a pizza brand and every day restaurants. Yeah, that content is something that the big boys can't and won't do. Because that CEO, like you said, he's not walking in kitchens and tasting sauce and doing this. I mean, to some extent, but not at the level these guys are. But right. I think content is the king, and it's amazing to me still, as good as this phone's camera is. And even like I saw some stuff from what a buddy of mine, Samsung, the other day, and as easy it is to get a $5 tripod that people still haven't figured out. The content is king, and it allows you to become relevant, like you talked about. It allows you to look a lot bigger than you probably are. And at the end of the day, and what people think is what matters.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, there's sort of two issues there, Matt. First, people get freaked out, like, oh, I'm making a video and it's going on the internet, and so then they start to get kind of paralyzed by that. It's like, it'll be fine. Second, and partially, I think people who don't work in digital feel like each individual piece of digital content is more important than it really is. Yeah. Right. Like, you making one post with a video about your pizza business is not going to have a material impact on the success of your business. Right. Even if it goes wrong over time, collectively, it can, for sure. But people tend to get a little too freaky about, well, what about this one video? And this isn't exactly color corrected. Like, it's going to be fine. Right. Yeah. Like, the atomic half-life of an individual piece of content is not very long, right? So don't freak out. Second thing, though, is people don't know what to make, right? They're like, okay, great, Matt, we're gonna make videos. We got the tripod. Yeah. Now, what are we talking about? So what we always do is say, look, just write down, literally, and we always make people do it long form with a piece of paper. We just like that strategy better. Write down the 50 questions that customers ask you most often. Just literally write them down. Just literally write them down, and then you make a video of all of those 50 questions. And there's a year's worth of content.
It's unbelievable. And it's all there. Like you said, it's in their messenger inbox. Hey, what are your hours? Hey, do you have peanut allergy items? You have gluten-free. Right. You can literally go through your inbox on every platform in your email and come up with 100 ideas. Easy. Or go in there and just look at your content and have conversations. So,
well, especially now, because the when you think about it from a video standpoint, most successful videos are pretty short now, especially if you're going to put them in social, right? So it's going to be a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe. And so you don't have to, it's not like a 30-minute show.
No.
Right? It's one question, two questions, and done. Right? So literally, you could make a video. Do you have gluten-free pizza? Yeah. And how does it differ from the regular pizza? Yeah. As somebody who does eat gluten-free, like I would watch that video all day long. In fact, I was at a pizza place in Louisville this weekend visiting some friends, made reservations, the whole thing. One of the reasons I made a reservation there because they allegedly have good gluten-free pizza. How do I know that? I check the reviews. I get there, order the pizza. My friends order 2 regulars. I order a gluten-free pepperoni. Server comes back, we're out of gluten-free crust. I'm like, you know what? That is a little bit troublesome because that's why I was here.
That's why I'm here.
How are you out of gluten-free crust? So it's just like that kind of thing, right? It's just so easy to shoot videos about. Even like if you've got a chain, let's say you've got 10 stores, like a question I would have is, all right, if you make your sauce in store, how do you make sure the recipe is consistent? Right? Like, how do I know? How do you make sure that the red sauce at this store is the same as the red sauce at the other store?
Yeah, the consistency.
So, and on and on and on and on. And people think, here's the problem, Matt. People think, well, everybody knows the answer to that. No, you know the answer to that because you're a pizza company CEO. You know who doesn't know the answer to that? Everybody else in the world. Yeah. Right. So people get way too close to their own stuff and they're like, oh, well, that question's too basic. That question's too boring. That question's too obvious. And that's not true.
Yeah. And it's also, they don't realize how captivating it is. That they think, oh, it's boring. Well, no, it's not. I mean, people would sit there and watch you. We had during the pandemic, one of my friends who consults for a lot of retail shops had these 2 ladies called the Debbies that own a boutique, and they had no store. Like nobody could come in. It's like, well, let's transition. Let's go Facebook Live and walk through the store and sell stuff. They were on for 2 hours. And at one point, he's like, Matt, they had hundreds of people watching. They sold tens of thousands of dollars on product. And people were watching. They're walking through the store going, oh, hey, we got this shirt. Hey, we got these new hats in. Hey, we got this. And you would have not thought people would have hung out. But like I heard Gary Vee say a long time ago, and also I heard a guy named Ty Lopez say this years ago. He's like, if you're doing a 1-hour video and somebody's watching still at minute 45, they'll probably buy what you're selling.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Or if you've got 10 3-minute videos, right? If they get to the third one, they're probably hooked. It's just like Netflix, right? So, if you watch one episode, okay, but if you're on that second or third episode of the series, you're probably going to finish it, right? It's just human nature.
Well, awesome. I appreciate your time today. I love the conversation. So
thank you.
Is that the best way for people to find you, jaybaer.com?
Yeah, jaybaer.com is my personal site. For our company, it's convinceandconvert.com, which is probably the best place to go because we have 3,000 articles for business owners, marketers. We've got podcasts, obviously, all kinds of research and reports. So all kinds of great stuff there at convinceandconvert.com. Other thing I will tell you is about the podcast. I'll say that again. Social Pros is our show, socialpros.com, all about social media. So if you're interested in digging deeper on social, that's the place to go. In fact, I mentioned Sam's Club. We're doing a really cool thing, Matt. We're doing a 5-episode deep dive on Sam's Club. So 5 episodes in a row, all about different elements of how they do social. So how do they do organic social, paid social, social listening, social insights, campaigns, contests. It's going to be really cool. That debuts April 16th.
Awesome. I look forward to it. And one day we got to hook up since we're so close.
I know. It'd be great. Yeah, let's do that. It'd be fun.
I know.
You probably know a couple good restaurants in the area, probably.
Yeah, Mellow Mushroom has gluten-free pizza. I hear it's pretty good.
There you go. All right, can do.
Well, cool. Well, I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Jay Baer, thank you. See y'all later.
Take care.